Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, the Baltimore Ravens cap crisis and why Derrick Henry does not have a contract extension yet. Let's talk. The Baltimore Ravens, just like every other NFL team who has a franchise level quarterback and he is paid, is going to face the same cap crisis. We began this conversation on yesterday when we were showing the difference in the salary cap increase between 2020 and 2025, which is roughly 40%, and the quarterback salary increase over that same time span, which is hitting around 35%. Now, the cap still exceeds the increase of the quarterback position, but then we took a look at the running back position. And just this past season alone, with the Saquon Barkley extension, taking him from $13 million APY up to $20 million APY, is roughly um, a 40% increase. But from the highest paid running back to this point, is a 20% increase. And so when you add them together, that's a 55% increase. Now, that may not be the exact way to do it, but in math, 55% still exceeds 40%. And so the question that I'm posing is how long can the NFL keep up this cap space race, right? What are they going to do about it? Right. And so when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens, I think that leans into why Derrick Henry does not have a contract extension at this point in time. See, the Saquon Barkley extension also, like I've been saying, raises the floor for other running backs who are due an extension or a brand new contract. And that would include the Baltimore Ravens, Derrick Henry. Question: does Baltimore want Derrick Henry in Baltimore? Yes. Does Derrick Henry want to be in Baltimore? According to Derrick Henry, yes. But what is the number they're going to be able to come to an agreement on? Because whatever the extension is going to have to be a 2-year extension in order to keep that APY low. Now we know that all kind of numbers can be finagled. You can pay more upfront money. You can add void years, but void years just kicks money down the road also. And the Baltimore Ravens are not in a salary cap space over the next couple of years where they can just continue to carry dead money, have voidable contracts, which still has a salary cap impact. And so, would Derrick Henry hold out? I mean, you would like to say no, but I think anything is possible. He is certainly waiting on his last big deal as a 31-year-old running back, and everybody wants to capitalize on their new money. And I think the Baltimore Ravens are in a salary cap situation, specifically now and into the next 2 or 3 seasons, where things are going to get real, real tight. And I think it's going to create a situation where the Ravens have to part ways with some of their talented players. And the reason why we're having this conversation because it puts a greater emphasis on the importance of hitting in this year's draft. We need last year's draft picks to come alive and add value, but we also need this year's draft picks. They don't have to come out and be stars, but they need to have star potential. They need to show something in their first year as a rotational piece where that says, you know what, that guy has it. Right now, we didn't see that much from last year's draft class. Nick Wiggins played very, very well as he got acquainted with the NFL. Roger Rosengarten got acquainted with the NFL very well, put on a good performance. But then everybody from the third round back to the seventh round, we didn't see much from, if at all. And so we can't have that this season. We need to have some signs, showings that say, hey, these guys have the potential to be stars. And I'm going to show you why. So we looked at quarterbacks and running backs on yesterday. So when you consider the wide receiver market and you consider the Baltimore Ravens salary cap situations over the last couple of seasons, it's going to be very, very tight going into next season. That's just how it's going to be. And so when you look at the wide receiver market from 2020 to 2025, you've seen the wide receiver market go up 100%. So the wide receiver increase has gone up more just this one position than the whole salary cap. Salary cap went up 40%, but the wide receiver position from 2020 to now has gone up 100%. Let's take a look and see how that happened. All right. So when you look at the wide receiver chart, if that's what you want to call it, in 2020, Julio Jones was the highest paid wide receiver at $20 million. Now, there were some other guys who kind of tied, but I just used Julio Jones as the example. In 2021, DeAndre Hopkins was the highest paid wide receiver at 27 million. Now that wasn't new money. That was just a salary increase as his contract went from year one to year two, so on and so forth. But he was the highest paid wide receiver at 27 million. Now Tyreek Hill got new money when the Kansas City Chiefs traded him to the Miami Dolphins. His new contract, which is new money, took him to $30 million. All right. And then when you look at AJ Brown in the 2024 season, which is new money, he got a new contract in this season. His money took him over $30 million. I think the exact number would have been 33. I think he got a 3-year, $96 million deal, which put him at 33 million. Excuse me, that was in 2024. Yeah. And and then AJ Brown also tied Tyreek Hill at 30 million on his first contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. So we can see that the number has jumped drastically. And then when you look at the 2025 season, of course, we all understand that that is Jamar Chase's new contract, putting him at $40 million. We're taking a look at these numbers because it's absolutely going to impact the Baltimore Ravens. When you look from 2020 to 2025, from 20 million to 40 million APY, that's a 100% increase. That's the fastest growing position group as far as salary in that same time frame. And so for teams who have number one wide receivers who may not be elite. Now, when I say elite, we're talking about the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jefferson, who is at 35 million. We're talking about, let's see who else is elite. I guess you could say Tyreek Hill is still elite. Devontae Adams got paid this year like he was elite. And so there's other guys who would fit in that category. But then there's a second tier of number one guys who may not be in that elite category, but they're still going to approach the $30 million floor. 30 million is the floor now. How do we know? Well, we just saw T. Higgins as a second receiver in Cincinnati get $28 million a year. Now that's not 30, but everybody else getting paid as a number one, not a number two, is going to be above T. Higgins. And so when you take into consideration the Baltimore Ravens, well, Zay Flowers is going into his third season. He just came off a Pro Bowl season. Let's say he comes in with another Pro Bowl level season. All right. Now that absolutely sets his market at 28 to $30 million. We have no clue what he's going to do in his fourth season, nor do we have any clue what's going to happen on his fifth year option, right? But then when you look at the Baltimore Ravens secondary receiver, which is Rashad Bateman, well, with all of these new deals, his floor is now raised. Who knows what Rashad Bateman is going to do this next season? But if he has a high end season, let's say if he goes over his career high of 750 yards, something like that. Let's say he leads the team again in touchdowns for a wide receiver. How much more money will he make? So now we have two wide receivers who will need new contracts in the same amount of time, right? 2 years for Rashad Bateman, 2 years for Zay Flowers. Both of them are going to need new contracts. Now, will they get into that 35 and 40 million like the elite of the elites? Certainly not. But could they start creeping up, right? Depending on their performances to 25, which is where Calvin Ridley signed last year, 24, 25 million. Could they start creeping up to that 28 million T. Higgins mark? Could they jump over 30? They certainly could, depending on performance, because at some point, $30 million is going to be a value or a steal for a number one wide receiver. Now, you got to remember, when I'm saying number one, there's two levels to number one. A number one guy means who plays the position, and a guy who is elite, who is going to command the top end money. And uh, so now when you look at Lamar Jackson needing an extension, Derrick Henry needing an extension, and in a couple of seasons, Zay and Bate is going to need an extension. But let's not stop there. Let's take a look at another position of importance that the Baltimore Ravens is known for. All right, we're going to take a look at the tight end position. When we consider the tight end position between 2020 and 2025, we've seen record-breaking deals for tight ends. The top end guy in 15 was coming in at 15 million. Excuse me. The top end, excuse me, take 12, go. So now when we take a look at the tight end position, right? That the high end guys, 15 million in 2020, all the way up to 19 million APY in 2025. That's a 35% ish increase. But let's take a look at how it happened. All right. So when you look at 2020, top guys, George Kittle coming in at 15 million in 2021. Believe it or not, Jonnu Smith, I think of the New England Patriots, got a new deal at 12.5, which sets the floor. This is where I said Isaiah likely would have come in before the new deal by Trey Smith. Isaiah likely would have came in at that 12.5 million because I believe that is the floor because Mark Andrews came in above 12.5 million, and then everybody else on this list would have come in above that. You remember, I'm always talking about ceilings and floors when you get a brand new deal. So when you come back and look in 2022, you have George Kittle coming in again at 15 million. You have um, Travis Kelsey coming in at 17. Excuse me. He tied Kittle at 15 million. Travis Kelsey actually got a new contract, which took him to 17 million. And then you have a guy like a Darren Whaler. He was the leading, who is retired now, but his salary before retiring was around 17 million. And then you have Trey Smith's new deal, which takes him to 19 million APY. Now, in truth, APY doesn't have to be that big of a deal. But what APY is a representation of is that number times how many ever years, which also is going to create how much guaranteed money a player is making, which is fixed to a team's books. And so as you see these markets increase, so now just between wide receiver and tight end, we have a 135% increase in a 6 season span on top of or in conjunction with a 55% increase between QBs and running backs. That's a 180% increase. Now I know that you can play with the cap and void years and give more money up front and all those kind of things, but a 180% increase or better, right, is still exponentially more than the 40% increase in cap. Okay. And listen, this is just offense. This is just offense. And again, it's not just going to impact the Ravens, it's going to impact every team. One, who has a franchise level quarterback, and two, has paired him with an elite level wide receiver, or who has a solid number one, because both are going to get big money. And then the running back position has been re established. And so, how are teams offensively going to offset? Well, here's the deal, which is why I talked about Derrick Henry's contract. What teams are going to do is they're going to value the running back position, but they're going to have to continue to offset the cost by making sure they get a top end rookie talent. The Baltimore Ravens almost have to draft a running back in this draft. This is why I did this video, and I'll do the defense next. But I did this video because I wanted to highlight what we can start expecting in Baltimore. We understand that Steve Bisciotti said he wants to win now. So I think that there's going to be a greater emphasis of bringing in pieces to fill some holes before the draft. That's why you hear the left tackle Fant's news, or maybe he just call him a tackle. We want to call him just a left tackle Fant. You know, some rumors that he could be joining Baltimore, or that Baltimore is interested in him, because we're trying to fill some holes so that we could go really best player available. But also, it creates an opportunity to use some of those draft picks to set ourselves up for the future. This year, I do expect the Baltimore Ravens to take a running back between the end of the third and the fourth round. Have to get one of the higher end running backs because we don't know the status of Derrick Henry. Will he hold out if he don't get a new deal? And or will Baltimore give him an extension that only secures him for 1 year, even though the extension is for two? All right. With what we see from the wide receiver market, the salary exploding of 100%, I could see the Baltimore Ravens also being in the market for, if you, I guess you could say it that way, for a high end wide receiving talent, somebody who could be an upgrade over Tez Walker, be an upgrade over a DeAndre Hopkins. And when I say upgrade, I'm talking about at the point that they replace DeAndre Hopkins, somebody who could potentially replace Rashad Bateman, because they're not going to be able to sign both Bateman and Zay Flowers based on what we've seen the wide receiver market be. All right, I do expect Mark Andrews to be moved between now and draft night, specifically draft night. Well, why would I expect that? Because there's going to be some teams in the market for a high end tight end. Well, there's two who have a first round grade. I believe it's Warren and Colston. I hope I got his name correctly. If I don't, y'all know who I'm talking about. And then that leaves the rest of the teams needing a tight end, looking for a tight end. Well, guess what we have in Baltimore? We have two top 10 guys on our roster. No matter where you rank them and how you put them, they're both two top 10 guys. Here's our problem: with the 35% increase in the tight end market just this season, we have two guys who are looking for what? A 35% increase in salary at a minimum. So Isaiah Likely is not coming in at that 12.5 anymore. He's going to be between 14 and 16 million. Well, that also means Mark Andrews is not going to take a deficit in pay, right? So he's going to try to come in where? Between 14 and 16 million. Will either one of them exceed Trey Smith? No. Will either one of them exceed Travis Kelsey? No. That's at 17 million. But I think they could get right in that ballpark. So we have two tight ends who need new contracts. And all three of our tight ends are free agents. So I do expect the Baltimore Ravens to take a tight end uh, probably between third and the fourth round. I just expect that. That's why I do expect Mark Andrews to be moved for a third or fourth round pick between now and draft night, so that we could draft his replacement and put Isaiah Likely in that number one spot. Because one or both of them, one of them will be paid by the Baltimore Ravens. And so just offensively, man, we are in a cap crunch, not because we did anything wrong necessarily, but simply because the market is exploding and the salary cap has not really kept up with it. Again, these are rich people problems, billionaires trying to break bread with millionaires. But nevertheless, if we're trying to build a contender, some guys are going to have to go. And this draft is going to have to be one of the most elite drafts in the Eric DaCosta era. I believe that um, the first and second round pick, they could be one of them is going to be a plug and play player, I believe, along the offensive line. And then one of them is going to be a high end rotational piece at edge. I think they're going offensive line and edge between their first two picks, because there has to be some way to begin to offset the elevation of salary across the league. So let me know what you guys want me to know. Stay tuned, man. On Saturday, we're going live right around 10 o'clock. So, man, I hope you guys can plug in with that. And Jeremiah, if you watch this, man, I'm going to drop you a link when that live opens up. And you'll be able to come aboard. I don't even know the subject matter for Saturday, but we're gonna get into something. So that's what I got for you guys today, man. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM. Out.